My name is Vinny Arizzo from Monroe Township, New Jersey. I am a filmmaker and film producer, and we are currently here at Syndicate Productions, which we built over the course of a few years. It wasn't sunshine and rainbows, but let me take you back to the beginning. My parents met when my mom was coming home from just babysitting this kid, and my father saw one glance at her and was like, wow. And, basically catcalled her. He was like, hey lady, you in the market for a boyfriend? And she just ignored him and just rode off. And then he goes to the kid who she was just watching, like at that property, or just saying goodbye to or whatever. And he walks up to the kid and says, hey, look, who's that woman? She goes, it's Patty, it's my babysitter. She goes, where does she work? Where's she from? And the kid didn't talk. And my dad gave the kid $8 and, began to continuously show up at my mom's place of work, which she was dating somebody at the time, and basically made himself available every single time. And I'd say, hey, when are we going to go out on a date? And she's like, I'm good. I've got a boyfriend, but thank you, And eventually when she broke up with this guy, and because my dad was driving her so crazy that she eventually said yes, and the first thing that she was going to do was introduce him to her family because she thought that would scare him away. And they met the family, and it didn't scare him away. They continued the date that night, and she couldn't stop laughing. Eventually, she moved in with him for 10 years. For 10 years, they lived together. He was a professional drummer, and he was also a carpenter, so he used both of those careers to then develop the funds to build the house on this piece of property that a lot of people said that he wasn't able to get, which he ended up getting. And as they broke ground, he found out that he had cancer. He battled it for years. But my dad got so sick that he wasn't able to continue building the house. So my mom was working 3 jobs. She was pregnant with my brother and, taking care of the 2 of us eventually when we were both born, and also building the house and taking care of my sick and dying father. Vocalizing it sounds awful. However, though, I had the best childhood. I mean, despite my father being sick and knowing that he was going to die, he basically made all of those problems seem invisible. He made every single day magical. I hold on to those memories. I hold on to those memories very dearly, and my first memory is him, actually. So because I was so young, I could hardly understand or fathom the fact that he was sick and dying, right? Mind you, I would see like small changes here and there, like my dad who would have like beautiful, very thick, amazing Italian hair. It was shaved off, and in order for him to not feel upset, my whole family would shave their heads too, and they would even shave me and my brother's heads too. So we were all bald together growing up, essentially. But being a kid, you're like, oh, this is fun. Everybody's just fitting in, getting together and stuff like that. But I mean, I didn't realize. I had no clue that this was even going on, and I couldn't even fathom. The one day that I don't remember is my father's passing. I remember that day, but the moment that morning, I don't remember him passing away. My mother's emotional state after my father's passing was just, it was rough. There was a sense of relief in the sense that he wasn't suffering anymore. But to be left in a home that isn't complete with 2 children, bills to pay, I mean, cancer's not cheap. So, she was stuck with a lot. My mother grew up in an abusive household where, her dad was an alcoholic. She had 7 brothers and sisters. And then, dealing with that household, was just very, very, very traumatizing to her. And then her only sense of relief was moving out and being with my father's family. Mind you, she worked her whole life. She worked 3 jobs, like pretty much consistently for the entire time. She's the strongest woman who I know, and I don't tell her enough. I always break her chops every day and stuff like that because it's just out of good fun. But if we're gonna be clean, my mom is the strongest woman who I know. She's probably the strongest woman in the world, and I don't mean that like in the slightest bit. When I tell you that she has been through hardships like you wouldn't even believe, and she holds this family up like you have no clue, and she can make it look completely invisible. My mother's state was just in complete, her world was destroyed. And despite that, she made sure that her children were still happy, knowing that everything was going to be okay. while he was sick, we needed an excavator for the house. And so I don't know how he found him, but he found this guy named Jeff. And Jeff basically came in and essentially started helping out my father. And they ended up becoming pretty close. And they were two very opposite people, in my opinion. But their relationship was very good. And come to find out, Jeff's wife also had cancer and came to Tony one day, my father, Tony, came to Tony and said, hey, look, my wife is sick. Maybe you two can talk over the phone and get each other through it. He's like, yeah, absolutely. So then he starts to talk to Jeff's wife, Karen, over the phone. Oh, I've got 2 kids, one from my first marriage, and I've got this kid with Jeff, and it's really hard. And so they started talking over the phone and everything like that. Eventually, my father died on my mother and my father's favorite holiday, St. Patrick's Day. It was really, really, everyone says he did it on purpose. So after he had passed away, the excavator, Jeff, stopped showing up. And then my mother never met the guy yet. Starts asking around, have you heard of him? Have you heard from him? What's going on? And someone told him, did you hear? Karen died, Jeff's wife, the same week as my father. My mom gets on the phone with the guy and says, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry about Karen. He's like, I'm so sorry about Tony. And she's like, look, I know we're both going through some tough times. Whatever help you need, please let me know. But I'm also living in a pretty crappy condition right now at this home and stuff like that. And I've got 2 kids. If I can help you in any way to where you can help me as soon as you can, please let me know. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, I just got to take care of these 2 kids. One's got a disability and he can get on the bus by himself, but the youngest one, I don't know what I'm going to do. She said, I'll watch him. So he comes over to my mother's house, and this guy was massive, 6'1", 6'2", long black hair all the way down to his ass, sleeve tattoos of Native American artifacts and images and stuff like that, naked girlfriends on his shoulders, and he had sunglasses on, and as soon as he took his sunglasses off, you could see his eyes were red from crying, and he's holding this little kid in this blanket. And my mom began this journey to watching his children while he was working on the house. 2 months go by, and this relationship begins to build, and my mom and him start to fall in love. And years go by, 2 years go by, and they ended up getting married. And this man got down on one knee after he got married with my mom and asked me, I'd really like to be your father. Can I be your dad? I said, I thought you already were. And next thing you know, we all went to the courthouse. He adopted me and my brother. My mom adopted his kid, and they both adopted Karen's first child together. And then they had 1 kid together. So when people ask, even though all of my brothers are locked in as they're my real brothers. I grew up with them. There's no doubt about it. But on paper, I have 1 adopted brother, 1 full brother, 1 half brother, and 1 step brother. And we all lived happily ever after until the pandemic.
My name is Jessie Shea, and I'm one of the co-owners of Syndicate Productions. The areas in the industry I'm interested in have to be, I know most people say this, but it is the writing and the directing aspect. Mostly writing. I just have a love for writing and, coming up with stories and creating worlds. And the directing aspect is, I love telling people what to do. I'm just kidding. The directing aspect, I like, working with the actors and kind of getting the performance out, but also having kind of the creative vision of the whole thing.
Syndicate Productions is a fully functioning production company where we shoot for clients such as Make-A-Wish, Walmart, Intuit, Netflix, JanSport, so on and so forth. But we also have an amazing film school program where after our day of being a filmmaker or being filmmakers and doing production work, the last couple hours of our day, we have students that we train in their respected fields for filmmaking. And not only are you learning from industry professionals that work for Syndicate, but because we're an active production company, we outsource to other production companies for their manpower and their assets to train you within your specific field. When you go to film school, you're learning from instructors who are not full-time filmmakers. So they're trying to sell you a dream that they're not exactly living right now. You know, they're getting a full-time salary off the school. That's not us. You know, we're a fully functioning production company. We love what we do.
My name is Marina Lupo, and I'm an actor and stunt performer. So, I mean, I was always obsessed with film since I was a kid. I just always watched movies, always was interested in action. I grew up practicing martial arts and just always was physical. So I always kind of like wanted to do that, but I didn't know how. Like college films first and independent films, and then just kind of went up from there with different connections with different coordinators that I've met. I think the craziest set experience I had was probably on Joker 2, because it was a open shoot out in the public in Manhattan, and it was just kind of something I wasn't really used to, because everything I've shot previously was either a closed set or, you know, it was like inside of a soundstage. Back in the summer, we filmed a TikTok with Sally Slices and Nikki Smiggs. We filmed it by a cornfield, and basically the premise of that video was that Sally and Nikki were pizza delivery drivers, and they were delivering a pizza out in the middle of nowhere, and it happened to be like they happened to encounter Michael Myers in the field, which was played by me. On that Syndicate shoot with Jesse and Vinny, it was great. I mean, it was great to work with the both of them. I can see that, you know, they have a really good chemistry with each other. Working with them is super easy and super fun, and they're really professional, and they're some of the best people I've honestly worked with, and I really hope to work with them more in the future.
So the good thing about Syndicate is it doesn't just teach you about the filmmaking aspect of the film industry, but also the business aspect. So he's taught me very valuable lessons, not even just for business, but for life. Things like always talk to people, introduce yourself to everyone you meet, and tell them what you do, because you never know where those small conversations could get you. My name is Garrett Cohen. I'm a student at Syndicate, and right now I'm interested in all aspects of film, but especially interested in editing. The biggest obstacle in the industry for me right now, as so far still just starting out, is actually having the equipment and knowledge for editing. So right now I don't even have like a computer, and I don't have much experience with editing programs on computers as a result. And so with Syndicate, there's so much gear, and I get to work with the computers here. And it's not just having the computers either. Vinny's actually there to help me with any questions about DaVinci and opinions. It's really helpful.
Syndicate had very humble beginnings.
Syndicate started through a lot of hardship.
We started out of Vinny's dad's garage, literally a mechanic shop. We had to heat the place with wood because it didn't have heat. So we were in like the mist of the winter, shivering.
We started in the old man's garage. Because we started in the cold, it was like 20 degrees outside, so we had to put wood into a wood-burning furnace in there before, like 30 minutes before we even began production. And even if we did begin production, like, you know, in that place, or began classes in that spot, you know, you could see your breath in the place, you know, and we're just trying to make things work. Hydraulic fluid all over the place. It was dusty as all hell, you know. The gear got damaged between both of those in some cases.
You hear like Steve Jobs started out of garage, so we kind of related to that. It's where it's like we literally worked at a mechanic's garage. We didn't have an office space. We had just a few. It was me, Vinny, and then, you know, a couple friends who were just really passionate, getting together week after week, just like discussing ideas, shooting spec pieces.
We started Syndicate at the height of the pandemic. The problem was that there wasn't much work, but the little work that was there was only 2 production companies in Jersey opened. And then when a third appeared, we were getting booked like crazy. So for context, now revealing that I've had 2 fathers, Dad and my adopted father, Jeff. We all call him the old man, you know, so Dad and the old man, so you know. So we all thought it was going to be happily ever after, you know, because, you know, we have like one of the most incredible stories that I think of how this whole family was developed. And then Then the old man got diagnosed with cancer at the beginning of the pandemic. And the state of New Jersey shut down the same day. I think it was like March 16th. So he was diagnosed before my biological father's passing, 21 years later. So we didn't know what to do. He was emotionally and immunocompromised. He was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and all of us were in the house. Obviously, I knew that the pandemic was a factor. I remained hopeful. Jesse and I were always writing movies and whatnot. So we always stayed on the phone, and at the beginning of the pandemic, we're like, yo, everything's gonna go digital. So I could already see it happening. Everything's gonna go digital in a matter of a few weeks. So let's try to see if we can get your business off the ground and my business off the ground, because we both each owned 2 companies at that point.
I started a photography company. It was called J Shea Photos. It actually started as a joke in college where I would just take pictures of my friends, and I was like, J Shea Photos. And then I was like, wait, I could actually make this a business. So I started doing like Sweet 16s, corporate events, doing like a lot of event photography, and then some portraits on the side. It was fun, and it, sustained me for a bit, but I was like searching for more, I guess, and I guess video was the way to go.
I had a production company called Orizo Films LLC, right? I shot for companies like Hopeless Records, like music videos for them. I did stuff for Marvel, for Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Warner Brothers, Universal. It was just some very small crew stuff, but at the same time, though, it was active. It was active enough. Jessie had her photography company, and she was getting like all these crazy clients. Like she was getting booked like crazy. I mean, she was getting booked more than me, and I'm like, oh my God, this girl's crazy. Like, it's just insane.
Vinny actually slid in my DMs because I was working at a production company at the time in the city, PAing, and he saw I was on a set, and he was like, oh, what are you doing? And then we kind of just started chatting for there because he was doing some production work. And I believe, like, I was talking about how I was working on a screenplay. I sent it to him. He was like, wow, I like this. I'm actually working on one. Let's meet up. So we linked up at like a Starbucks to talk about his project. And like literally ever since then, we started writing together. And then when the pandemic hit, we were really bored. And he's like, we should start like a film school. And I was like, well, I kind of want to do movies and production. So we like kind of combined our ideas together and created Syndicate, I guess, for what it is now.
My name's Lance Drake, and I'm a student here at Syndicate Film School. Syndicate inspires my creativity pretty much just by everything you see in the room as soon as you walk in. You see the doorway dolly thinking, holy crap, I can do so much stuff with this. You see the friggin' Dana dolly, which I saw in the beginning, which was like, I can do amazing things with this. And it makes you think of ideas that when you enter into the room, you never leave.
Syndicate inspires my creativity because whenever we have our like schedules for like the month, there's so many different topics, and they're not just basic things. There's a lot of advanced topics that you wouldn't even be able to learn unless you were there to do it hands-on. And so with all of these topics, we have more options of ways we can shoot things and light things and edit things. And with all these techniques, it gives us more options for creativity.
When we first found out that the old man had cancer, it was just like, come on, again? My biological father was misdiagnosed 5 times. And guess what? So was my adopted father. He was misdiagnosed 5 times. He was no hypochondriac. He never liked going to the doctor, but he kept going over and over again. The doctor's like, it's probably diabetes. It's probably this, probably that. They check him, and then months later, because he was trying to go over months of times, check him, riddled with cancer. It was so rough. And then on top of that, he was diagnosed the day before my father's death anniversary. That was rough. And then literally the pandemic happened. So, just everything shut down. Almost the same day? That shit just doesn't happen to people. My mother her mental health was just deteriorating so bad because all of the feelings that she had buried from the first time around of losing her first husband and trying to help him with cancer are now coming back tenfold. And it was just really rough on everybody's relationships with each other at that whole household. It was bad. It was really, really bad. But then when we found out that when the doctor came to him and said that he had a few weeks left, he was just shaking in his chair, man. He was just so afraid. He was so afraid. We bring him home, and I remember the first thing he said to me, because he's all yellow from his skin, he looked at me and he's like, "I look pretty bad, huh?" What do you say to that? I was like, "Nah, you don't look bad." He knew I was lying. I could see he knew I was lying. So we chilled. We chilled in his room for like the next 2 weeks from there. And it was just rough nights. It was just really, those last 2 nights were so rough. It's like walking on a tightrope, knowing that you could fall at any moment. It's like you know it's going to happen, but it's not happening yet, and it's just so painful. And he's just suffering, you know? He was hiccuping so much, vomiting so much. Couldn't hold down a meal. It's like the strongest man in the world, the man who loved to eat, who could eat as fast as anything. Bro, he can't even hold down a sip of coffee. So then we find out he's only got a few days left. I sat down with him, and I pretty much knew this was going to be our last conversation. I just told him thank you. I said, "Thank you for everything." And he's like, "Yeah, thank you too." He's like, "I love you very much." He's like, "And Syndicate's going to be huge. That Syndicate thing you're working on, it's going to be massive. It's going to be huge," is what he says. "It's going to be big." And I'm like, "Yeah, I hope so." And I said, "I'm really going to miss you." Sorry. So, in moments like that, though, how doesn't that light you up, How doesn't that light you up? Now you have to fight. Now you have to fight. You have no choice. And then you begin to think about everybody who puts you exactly where you needed to be at that very moment. My biological father, the passion that he had that runs in that family, that I now carry. And then the man who is a business genius, who taught me about life, who taught me about relationships, Both of those people passed and only wanted the best. And watching both of them go, it's like, wow, I've got to do something now. I have to follow my dream. I have to. However, though, we're still here and we're alive. If it wasn't for him, this company would not be here.